everybody. Yuki was back in. He fully practiced. Obviously, Coby's still out. Patrick left practice. I don't think it's too serious. I haven't really checked with them, but just kind of look like an ankle sprain.
What about Coby? I know he's obviously like limited right now, but like what kind of stuff is he doing, and what kind of timeline are you looking at?
Well, I think that leading up to training camp, with his calf, I think it's the case. I think with a lot of these kind of injuries, when you're dealing with a soft tissue injury, you start to ramp them up, and then obviously when they start to feel, I don't even say with Coby it was discomfort as much as it was tightness. They kind of pull back, and then I think when they do that a couple times and maybe the tightness is still there, what ends up happening is they say, okay, listen, let's shut this down. So he does do some shooting on the court. He is riding the bike. He's doing everything he can do to keep himself in shape. He's obviously, I appreciate his involvement in practice and trying to be uplifting to the guys while he's out there. But that's really all he's doing, and I mean, he's doing everything he can do within the framework of giving his calf enough time to, recover.
Yeah, and like early on in the season, you probably want to let it totally calm down so that it's not a lingering thing throughout the year.
That was the biggest thing right there, is exactly how that was. It was just like, okay, this eagerness to start camp, and then all of a sudden he's got that, and then it puts him another week, and then you're putting it behind. He had been dealing with this in the summer, and it was like, you know what, like we're trying to ramp him up to get him ready for camp, and he's still feeling some tightness there, and we need to get it to the point where he gets past the tightness, so let's just shut this down to make sure we are past it, and then he can kind of start back up with activities. But that was exactly the big thing, is like, you don't want to start to get into 3 or 4 preseason games, and then you got to shut them down for 2 weeks going into the regular season. So I think there was an overabundance of caution, and I don't say that in any negative way. I think it was a smart move to make sure he's out of the woods and he's healthy once he does get back to playing.
Going back to Patrick, did you see what happened? Did he roll his ankle?
I was down at the other end. It looked like he kind of came, like he was going up for a layup, and he tried to, I don't want to say jump stop, but he planted, and you could just see he tweaked his ankle, kind of went over on it. I don't know if it was the right or the left. I'm not really sure.
Was during a scrimmage? Or
yeah, playing 5-on-5. Okay. Yep. He kind of, he didn't come down on anybody's foot. He actually stopped, and like I think his momentum, maybe his foot got planted and his foot rolled over.
Was he carried off? Did he go?
No. He walked off the court. No, he walked off. He was not carried off.
Not amputated or anything like that?
No, he's okay. Yeah, it was none of that. But it wasn't one of those where he kind of came down, landed on the guy's foot, and twisted it. It was more coming to a stop, like his sneaker got stuck and it rolled.
I want to ask you too about Tre Jones, because it was pretty clear how quickly he earned your trust last season when he came here. But he was in a high usage role last year because of where you guys were at in the season and the Zach trade and injuries. Can you envision him in a successful backup role moving into this season, and how pleased were you that they re-signed him?
Yeah, man, I was very, very happy that we did that. I think there's a lot of substance to Tre. I mentioned, the it factor. There's a lot of intangible things that he just brings to the table. He's consistent every day as a person. He's a really good competitor. He's got a really high IQ. I think he's really good with the guys. He sees the game, through a leadership point guard role in terms of trying to make people better. Listen, I think that you always go back when that happened during the year, and you look at the minutes and you say, in some way did the minutes create, what ended up happening to his foot. I don't know if it did or it didn't. It's hard to say, but you have to at least take into consideration the fact that he went from playing a certain amount of minutes in San Antonio to a pretty big spike for us, right? So, had that maybe contributed? Possibly, but I think his role is going to be important. And the thing that's great with him is whether it's starting, coming off the bench, whatever he's always tries to figure out ways to impact the game.
What did you like about how Josh and Coby played together last season, and what do you feel like they need to improve about that partnership this year?
I felt like as the season went on, and I think it was hard for Josh, like again, you talk about a player coming from an entirely different country, and I know he was in Oklahoma City and he'd been in America, but from that to an entirely different team, and you're always, Josh's greatest strength, and he's got a lot of great strengths, but one of his strengths is he's really good passer, and I think in that position, it takes a while to get to know guys. The thing that I felt really good about Coby and Josh was the relational piece, to watch that grow. I know they always had a really good relationship off the court, but I think on the court, their constant communication, talking to one another, I thought that was really, really positive and helpful. And especially after, the Zach trade, once Zach, he kind of was, after the All-Star break, wasn't on our team anymore. I think those two guys, at least their pairings, were maybe a little bit different than it was trade deadline All-Star break, and I think that relationship on the court just continued to evolve.
Coby said that he's been working in the offseason on being a little bit more off-ball. Is that kind of just the expectation of where kind of that dynamic is going to fall, of Coby shifting back to being a little bit more of that two guard?
It's Coby is obviously very, very dynamic with the ball, and we need him with the ball, and we need him doing that. The other part of his growth and development, I think he realized this, there are opportunities for him to make the game easy for himself by running and getting into open windows, open situations, to create closeouts where he's got defenders kind of closing to him rather than defenders on him. And I think for probably somebody like Coby, as you look at your career and evaluate your career, and you come into the league and you're kind of a point guard and you're playing off the ball, on the ball, and you're this combo guard, I think you just envision yourself, okay, I'm going to play with the ball in my hands. And I think as he's gotten better, he's become a different priority for teams around the league in terms of trying to stop him. And I think the other part for him is, for his development for our team, his movement off the ball is something that's important. It's not necessarily about, hey, let's move him off the ball, as much as when he's off the ball, he's got to generate and create opportunities for himself without quote-unquote play calling. Like maybe running to the corner or getting out in transition, getting up the floor. And I get it. Like there's times, he may be a little bit tired, and it's like, you know what, I'm going to take this one off. Or, hey, guy's driving, he's watching, if he can move into an open gap or area, it would create a closeout or a catch and shoot or an opportunity to maybe not play against a loaded, shifted defense. So I think it's something that, when I've talked to him the last 2 years, that he's kind of put a focus on, but I think he even sees it himself, that he's wanted to work and get better in those areas.
He basically just can't be waiting for the ball to be back in his
Or the
hands.
ball in his hands the whole entire time, you know what I mean? Because, when the ball's in your hands the whole entire time, the defense is going to play the ball. So, if Isaac Okoro has it, or Vooch has it, or, Modest has got it, and there's some kind of penetration or drive, or there's some kind of play that they're making, the defense is going to rotate to that. There are opportunities on the perimeter to move into areas of the floor where that ball may find you, and now you're playing in a game that becomes a little bit easier. It's not to say we don't want Coby with the ball in his hands, I definitely do, but there's other ways for him to inject himself into the game when the ball's not in his hands, and he can find a way to get to smoke. I always say that part of the game is it's like running in transition. I'm running, but I'm not getting it. Well, you may have to run 20 times to get it twice. You know what I mean? Coby, I'm not getting it. Well, you may have to keep doing that 20 times, right? It's just that, and I think Coby's got that mentality because he's always been a worker, and I think part of his growth as a player, and I've said this before, he deserves all the credit. He always takes time to evaluate where he needs to get better, and I think that's another step for him that's going to help him and help our team.
Building off of that, given how dynamic he is with the ball in his hands, do you see kind of a path where you could potentially stagger Josh and Coby, or do you see the path to victory as we want these two guys playing at the same time, Coby mostly off ball and Josh, handling the facilitating?
Yeah, I think you've got to look at it from both lenses. I love those two guys on the floor together. They've been great. But the other thing, too, is sometimes, when you have guys coming in off the bench, it's a way to shore up the unit and you stagger them, So maybe it's they're starting games, closing first or second quarters, closing games. But, there's a lot of room in between the game where if they can show and create support for other guys, I don't want to say that all their minutes are only going to be together. I think there's opportunities where they won't always be together, and that's not a bad thing either. You just try to build up the team and utilize those rotations as best you can.
Really, I'm not sure you heard Modest's comments on Monday, but he was saying that he's asked the staff to sort of treat him like an all-defensive defensive guy, like he wants that treatment. What does that look like for you guys as a staff, and how do you sort of balance, like knowing he's in his second year but wanting to treat him like a player at college?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing with Modest for me is I think he really wants to be pushed and challenged. He's always been that way. I think it's a really good thing. I've said this before. I've been around younger players. When they make a mistake, they feel like the end of the world. They feel like they're letting everybody down. He's got a really, really good ability to kind of quickly course correct and try to learn from it and move forward. Listen, he's got a lot of areas he's got to get better in. And I don't say that in a way that that he's disappointed anybody, because he's probably exceeded expectations the way the year started for him last year and where he ended up. But like he said, which he wants to do, he's got to get better defensively. You know, he's got to get better offensively. There's a lot of room in growth, because I said, I think on Monday I said this, he's going to see a difference this year in relationship to the level of players that he's going to be guarded, that he's got to guard, and that who's going to be guarding him. And I think in a lot of ways, you know, that first half of the year probably wasn't a well-known commodity in the league, and by the end of the year he was a well-known commodity. And he's going to be a different guy on the scouting report now than he had been in the past. But that's kind of part of his growth and development. He needs that. He wants that. He'll lean into that. And I respect that he wants that. Like, he wants to be a great defender. He wants to be a great offensive player. He's got a drive to do those things. So, like I said, you know, he's got a lot of things to get better at, but he wants to get better at those things, and he wants to be challenged and pushed on those things, which I have great respect and admiration for, because I don't think Modest has ever taken the easy way out. He's always taken the tougher road, and I give him credit for putting himself out there of who he wants to be as a player.
And so what does that sort of change as far as what you guys are doing as a staff? Because he made it sound like he's almost demanding to be coached that way. Like, how has that changed what you guys?
Yeah, I don't know if I really have had conversations with him necessarily about the defensive part as much as keep pushing me. You know, keep coaching, keep pushing. That's kind of what I've done with him. You know, and probably, you know, he got a pretty good taste of that early in the year last year when he had pretty much a very short, you know, opportunity where if he wasn't doing the things he said he wanted to be held to, he was off the floor and he sat on the bench. And I do think that for him, that helped him see what are the things I do have to do to, you know, get to be the player I want to become. So I don't sense anything this year has changed from what he said to me last year coming in as a rookie of what he wanted. Like, nothing has really changed from my perspective. He's always wanted that, you know, from, I think, everybody.
Coach, what's the impression about Yuki Kawamura?
Yeah, I mean, Yuki's got a great feel of how to play. He's a very, very smart player. It's pretty amazing the impact he can make, you know, at his size. I love the fact that he can pick up full court and pressure the ball the way he does. He's a very, very good three-point shooter. He's a very, very good passer. Obviously, he's got an experience with Memphis of being in the league, but you know, just with the way he plays the game, his spirit, who he is as a guy, you know, you always root for people like that.
Let's start with the health. Obviously, last we saw you were unfortunately suffering an injury. When did you get fully healthy? How do you feel as training camp has started here?
Yeah, it took probably about a month to get fully healthy off season. Obviously, wasn't in a rush to get back healthy. With it being the off season, just wanted to take care of myself. So about a month into the off season, got back to working out and, you know, being back to myself. I was feeling good, so you know, feel back to myself now. Feels good to be back with the guys, everybody in here, working hard and, you know, ready to get this thing rolling.
Yes, obviously you let your agent Kevin do what he does, but did you think he'd be back here?
Yeah, I had a feeling I'd be back here. I had to come back probably a couple times in the off season just to do some testing for my foot and things like that before I had re-signed. And every time I would be telling my wife, like, I just have a feeling, you know, I'm gonna be back. Like, I don't know what it was. So I'm just super excited to be back. Obviously, didn't get too much of the summer here, but you know, weather's still beautiful and everything, so I love it.
I just asked Billy this. I mean, you're obviously in a pretty high usage role with Zach getting traded and some of the injuries and starting a lot too. Mm-hmm. You project to be in a different role, at least initially, with Josh and Coby probably the starters. How do you think you'll adjust to that?
Yeah, I'm ready for, you know, whatever the team asks of me. Obviously, like you said, we're not banged up coming into this year, which is nice. So we'll have a lot more bodies coming into the year, and we're all trying to figure out our roles and everything like that. But I mean, whatever the team asks and needs from me, I'll be ready to try to give my all in my role and just do whatever I can to help the team win.
We talked about this a little bit towards the end of the year, but just having some time removed from it, what did it feel like to just come in and just gel so quickly? And it felt like you played very comfortably from the get-go.
Yeah, I think the style of play was huge for me, being able to gel so quickly with the guys, and also just the guys accepting us three that got traded in here. They accepted us very quickly, helped us get acclimated to everything going on so quickly, and it was a great group of unselfish guys that also helped us. So I don't think it was necessarily anything we did. I think just the coaches and then our teammates, helping us get caught up right away, and then us just fitting in nicely.
And then with that, obviously, you were a free agent, but you signed, I think, pretty much right away. Was there ever any thought about trying to explore your options, or because you had such a good time here and gelled so quickly, you kind of wanted to be back right away?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to be back. I didn't want to think about going anywhere else, and so I just wanted to be back for sure, and everything else I just let my agent do. I don't want to get into all that stuff, so told him to just call me if he heard anything, and obviously we heard pretty quickly, and so that was definitely good.
This backcourt has changed so much in the last year, and you guys kind of had to adapt to that on the fly last season with injuries and trades. How would you define how this backcourt kind of looks coming into this season now that you've had a little bit more time with it?
Yeah, I think we have a deep backcourt for sure. Coach likes to play a lot of guards though, so that'll be really good for us that we do have some depth in the backcourt, and we play extremely fast, so we got a lot of guards out there that can push the pace. We're very unselfish. We like to move the ball, and we're really good in transition. So we'll try to keep that up again this year.
Did you follow Josh Giddey's restricted free agency signing?
Of course I did. We were keeping in touch, though. We knew. I think we kind of had a feeling he would be back, but obviously it's just the business of it all. Right. So you kind of just got to take it for what it is, and just continue to show up like we did.
Did you ask for a loan?
Yeah, I need to. I need to get all his Cobys now that he's with Puma.
Saw you briefly in Vegas. Haven't seen you since then. What was kind of your off season like?
It was a good off season. Did a lot of traveling. You guys saw me in Vegas in August. I did Basketball Without Borders for the NBA, which was a great trip. Honestly, they do a really good job. Stayed over in Europe for a little bit. I was back here at the end of August and all of September.
That was your first one, right?
Basketball Without Borders?
Yeah,
that was the first one.
And was Lloyd Pierce kind of behind that? Or
he was, I think he went to the following one. He went to the one in Africa this year. Gotcha. So I did the Europe one. I think I told you this last time, but he was my first or second year. He brought a couple of us together and said we got to do this trip at some point. Kind of put a pin in it, but it's a really good trip to do. And so I'm glad I was able to do it this year.
You obviously found a comfort level pretty quickly here last year, coming over after the trade, and you guys brought basically everybody back with Tre and Josh re-signing. What are your kind of thoughts about your role and the team going into this offseason?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. Like you said, I think a big part of that was the style of play. I think we're trying to do a lot of the same stuff. Got a lot of bodies. I think we're going to be able to play fast, and so definitely excited for the group we have.
Kevin, you mentioned kind of having a lot of bodies. Tre also talked about just the amount of guards that are kind of in this group. How do you approach wanting to kind of stand out, carve a role out for yourself when there aren't just that many guys to kind of compete with?
Yeah, I think everyone has different skill sets. I think that'll happen naturally if we all just play like ourselves. But I think that depth is the strength of our team, especially at the guard positions. And a lot of guys are going to play in different roles, or not different roles, different positions, and we all just got to be ourselves. It'll all come together.
You have experience as both a starter and a reserve in this league. You started more by a lot, though, and had success last year closing the season as a starter. What are your thoughts going into camp? Do you want to be the starter? I know you're going to say what you're going to do is best for the team, but it looks like there's one starting spot that could be open. What's your approach to that?
Yeah, to me, it really doesn't matter. I trust Billy. I trust his judgment. Like I said, I love the way that we're going to play. We're going to play fast. We're going to play up and down. I think we're going to play a lot of bodies. And so I trust his judgment. So if it's starting, great. If it's not, great. I'll come off the bench.
What sense do you get about what they are looking for out of the starting three? Is it like more of a defensive thing? We've talked a lot about physicality so far. Is it more of the shooting and the movement shooting stuff that you offer? What's kind of the sense of what the coaching staff is looking for?
They haven't really gone too far, telling us exactly what they're looking for. Billy's just said to everybody, just for me especially, just be myself. Whatever that entails, and play to my strengths. And like I said, the rest is up to him, his judgment, whatever he thinks we need.
What about the competition itself between you and Isaac and maybe Io and Trey in there? Like, what just in scrimmaging and stuff like that, how's that going?
Yeah, there's competition every day. It's been a lot of fun. Even before this week, here all of September, we played a lot of pickup and just being competitive, going at each other. Even in the weight room, guys talking. Again, it's a lot of guys that, like I said, our strength is our depth is a strength. I think there's a lot of guys who can play a lot of minutes, who deserve to play a lot of minutes, and I think kind of making each other better every day has been great.
Is there any talk amongst yourselves? I mean, obviously everyone can see what happened with the East with the terrible injuries to Tatum and Halliburton. I mean, is there any talk amongst yourselves like, hey, this conference is wide open? I mean, with our style of play and our depth, we can surprise some people.
Yeah, I think we're a confident group. We haven't really set any specific goals or markers that we want to hit. I think as a team, it's continuing to play the right way. Everybody's aware of the injuries that have happened across the East, and if we come out and play the way we think we're capable of playing, we play the right way, the style of basketball I think Billy's wanting us to play, I like our chances.